The sun blazed mercilessly over the dusty plains of Wyoming Territory as Samuel Sam Mackenzie rode his weathered stallion toward the small frontier town of Cedar Ridge. His calloused hands gripped the reins with the confidence of a man who had spent 32 years taming both wild horses and wilder men. The year was 1878. And Sam had built a reputation as one of the most respected ranchers in the territory. But there was one thing his rugged exterior couldn't hide: the loneliness that gnawed at his soul like a persistent winter wind. If you're enjoying this tale of the untamed West, please subscribe to our channel and let us know what city you're watching from in the comments below. Your support means the world to us, and we love connecting with fellow lovers of frontier stories. Sam had placed an advertisement in the Eastern newspapers 3 months prior, seeking a wife to share his life on the ranch. The responses had been few, but one letter had caught his attention, written in delicate script by one Miss Eleanor Whitmore of Boston. Her words were proper, reserved, speaking of her desire for a quiet life away from the bustling city. She described herself as a woman of simple needs, well-educated, but seeking the tranquility of frontier life. What she hadn't mentioned, and what Sam couldn't have imagined, was the fire that burned beneath her carefully constructed facade of propriety. The stagecoach arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, kicking up clouds of red dust that seemed to hang in the air like a curtain between Sam's old life and whatever was to come. As the door opened, a small, gloved hand emerged first, followed by a woman who seemed almost ethereal against the harsh backdrop of the frontier. Eleanor Whitmore was not what Sam had expected. Where he had imagined a sturdy, practical woman suited for ranch life, he found instead a delicate creature with porcelain skin, auburn hair pinned in an elaborate style, and eyes the color of storm clouds. She wore a traveling dress of deep blue silk that seemed entirely impractical for the dusty reality of Wyoming, and when she stepped down from the coach, she moved with a grace that belonged more to Boston ballrooms than cattle ranches. Their wedding ceremony took place the very next day in the small wooden church that served Cedar Ridge's faithful. Reverend Morrison performed the brief service, while a handful of townspeople looked on with curious eyes. Sam stood tall in his best suit, his dark hair slicked back, trying to ignore the way his hands trembled slightly as he slipped the simple gold band onto Eleanor's finger. She had changed into a modest white dress that she had brought in her trunk, and though she spoke her vows clearly, her eyes remained downcast, her voice barely above a whisper. To everyone present, she appeared to be exactly what her letters had suggested: a timid, proper Eastern lady who would need time to adjust to the harsh realities of frontier life. The ride to Sam's ranch took them through rolling hills dotted with cattle and wild horses. Eleanor sat beside him on the wagon seat, her hands folded primly in her lap, her eyes taking in the vast expanse of land that was now her home. The ranch house, when it came into view, was larger than she had expected. A 2-story structure built of sturdy logs with a wide front porch and windows that caught the afternoon light. Sam had built it himself over the course of several years, adding rooms as his prosperity grew. It was a testament to his success, but as Eleanor looked at it, Sam wondered if she found it crude compared to the refined homes of Boston. That first evening, they sat across from each other at the kitchen table, sharing a simple meal of beef stew and fresh bread. The conversation was stilted, filled with polite inquiries about her journey and his explanations of ranch life. Eleanor listened attentively, asking appropriate questions about the cattle, the hired hands, and the seasonal routines that governed their existence. She seemed genuinely interested, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of something deeper that Sam couldn't quite identify. When she excused herself to retire for the evening, Sam felt a mixture of relief and disappointment. He had prepared the spare bedroom for her, understanding that their marriage would need time to develop beyond the practical arrangement they had agreed upon. As the days passed, Eleanor settled into the routines of ranch life with surprising adaptability. She proved to be an excellent cook, transforming Sam's simple meals into elaborate affairs that filled the house with enticing aromas. She tended a small garden behind the house, coaxing vegetables and herbs from the stubborn soil with a patience that impressed the ranch hands. During the day, she moved through the house like a gentle spirit, cleaning, mending, and organizing with an efficiency that spoke of good breeding and careful education. But Sam began to notice things, small things, that didn't quite fit with the image of the timid Eastern bride she presented to the world. There was the way she watched him when she thought he wasn't looking, her storm-gray eyes following his movements with an intensity that made his skin prickle with awareness. There was the way she lingered when bringing him coffee in the morning, standing just close enough that he could smell the lavender soap she used, her presence both comforting and unsettling. And there were moments, brief, fleeting instances, when he caught glimpses of something wild in her expression, something that reminded him of the untamed horses he spent his days breaking. The first real hint of the passion that lay beneath Eleanor's proper exterior came during their third week of marriage. Sam had been working late in the barn, tending to a mare that was having difficulty foaling. The birth had been complicated, requiring all of his skill and patience. And by the time the healthy colt was nursing at its mother's side, the moon was high in the star-filled sky. Exhausted and covered in sweat and hay, Sam made his way back to the house, expecting to find Eleanor long since retired to her room. Instead, he found her waiting in the kitchen, still fully dressed despite the late hour. She had prepared a bath for him, something she had never done before, and the large metal tub sat steaming in front of the fireplace. When he protested that it was too much trouble, that he could wash at the pump outside, she fixed him with a look that was both determined and strangely vulnerable. For the first time since their wedding, her voice carried a note of command rather than deference, as she insisted that he accept her care. As Sam lowered himself into the hot water, feeling the tension leave his muscles, he was acutely aware of Eleanor moving around the kitchen, her skirts rustling softly as she tidied up from the evening meal. What happened next would replay in Sam's mind for weeks to come. As he sat in the tub, his eyes closed in exhaustion, he felt gentle hands on his shoulders. Eleanor had approached silently, and before he could protest or even fully comprehend what was happening, she began to massage the knots from his tired muscles. Her touch was firm and sure, nothing like the hesitant, proper contact he had expected from his reserved wife. When he started to turn around, to question her unexpected boldness, she placed a hand on his head, keeping him facing forward, and whispered in a voice he had never heard from her before, low, husky, filled with an authority that made his breath catch in his throat. The transformation in Eleanor during those moments was so complete that Sam wondered if he had imagined the timid woman who had stepped off the stagecoach just weeks before. Her hands moved over his shoulders and back with a confidence that spoke of hidden knowledge, hidden desires that she had kept carefully concealed beneath her proper facade. When she finally stepped away, leaving him alone in the cooling water, Sam felt as though he had been struck by lightning. The woman who had just touched him with such intimate authority was not the same woman who blushed when he complimented her cooking, or who asked permission before rearranging the furniture. That night, Sam lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling and trying to make sense of what had happened. Through the thin walls of the house, he could hear Eleanor moving around in her room, and he found himself straining to interpret every sound. Was she pacing? Was she as affected by their encounter as he was? The questions tormented him until the early hours of the morning, and when he finally drifted off to sleep, his dreams were filled with images of storm-gray eyes and hands that promised secrets he couldn't begin to imagine. The next morning brought a return to the familiar routine, but something fundamental had shifted between them. Eleanor served his breakfast with the same quiet efficiency as always, but there was a new awareness in the air, a tension that crackled like electricity before a thunderstorm. Sam found himself watching her more carefully, looking for signs of the woman who had emerged the night before. But Eleanor seemed determined to maintain her facade of proper domesticity. Yet there were moments, a lingering glance, a brush of her hand against his as she poured his coffee, a smile that seemed to hold secrets. That told him the passionate woman he had glimpsed was still there, waiting beneath the surface. As the weeks turned into months, these moments became more frequent and more intense. Eleanor began to find excuses to touch him, adjusting his collar before he went to town, tending to small cuts and scrapes with a thoroughness that seemed excessive, standing close enough while they worked together in the garden that he could feel the warmth of her body through the fabric of her dress. Each encounter left Sam more confused and more aroused than the last. He had married Eleanor expecting a companionate relationship that might, over time, develop into something deeper. What he hadn't expected was to find himself married to a woman who seemed to be conducting a careful, deliberate campaign of seduction while maintaining the pretense of innocent domesticity. The breaking point came on a night in late autumn when an early blizzard trapped them in the house together for 3 days. The storm had come without warning, turning the world outside into a howling white wilderness that made travel impossible. Sam had managed to get the cattle into the shelter of the barn and the horses into the stable before the worst of the weather hit. But by the second day, the isolation and the constant awareness of Eleanor's presence in the small house had stretched his nerves to the breaking point. Eleanor seemed unaffected by the storm, moving through her daily routines with the same calm efficiency as always. She cooked elaborate meals, mended clothes by the fireplace, and read from the small collection of books she had brought from Boston. But Sam noticed that she had begun to dress differently during the storm. Her hair was looser, her dresses seemed to fit more closely, and she had abandoned some of the layers of petticoats that had previously concealed the curves of her figure. When she bent to tend the fire, when she reached for something on a high shelf, when she simply walked across the room, Sam found his attention drawn to the graceful lines of her body in a way that left him feeling like a schoolboy caught staring at his teacher. On the third night of the storm, as the wind howled around the house and the fire crackled in the hearth, Eleanor made her move. Sam was sitting in his chair by the fireplace, trying to concentrate on the ranch ledgers, but finding his attention constantly drawn to his wife as she moved around the room. She had been unusually quiet all evening, and there was something in her manner, a tension, an anticipation that put him on edge. When she finally approached him, carrying a cup of coffee, he looked up to find her standing closer than usual, close enough that he had to tilt his head back to meet her eyes. What he saw in those storm-gray depths made his breath catch in his throat. Gone was any pretense of timidity or proper reserve. Eleanor was looking at him with an intensity that was both predatory and vulnerable, her lips slightly parted, her chest rising and falling with rapid breaths. When she set the coffee cup on the table beside his chair, her hand lingered on his shoulder, her fingers tracing the line of his collarbone through his shirt with a touch that was unmistakably deliberate. The coffee grew cold as Eleanor slowly, methodically began to reveal the woman she had been hiding beneath her proper facade. Her hands moved to the buttons of his shirt, and when he started to protest, to question what she was doing, she silenced him with a look that was both commanding and pleading. This was not the timid Eastern bride he had married. This was a woman who knew exactly what she wanted and was determined to take it. As she worked the buttons free, her fingers brushing against his skin with each movement, Sam felt as though he was discovering his wife for the first time. What followed was a night that redefined everything Sam thought he knew about marriage, about desire, and about the woman he had chosen to share his life. Eleanor's transformation was complete and overwhelming. The proper, reserved lady who had stepped off the stagecoach months before revealed herself to be a woman of passionate intensity, of hidden knowledge and secret desires that she had carried with her from Boston like a carefully guarded treasure. She took control of their encounter with a confidence that left Sam breathless, guiding him through experiences he had never imagined, showing him pleasures he had never dreamed possible. Her touch was both gentle and demanding, her whispered words a mixture of endearment and command that made his head spin with desire and confusion. She seemed to know exactly how to touch him, exactly what he needed, as though she had been studying him for months and planning this moment with careful precision. When he tried to take the lead, to assert the masculine dominance that frontier life had taught him was his right and responsibility, she resisted with a strength that was both physical and psychological, maintaining control of their passion with an authority that was as arousing as it was bewildering. As the night wore on, Sam found himself trembling not just with physical pleasure, but with the emotional impact of discovering that his quiet, proper wife possessed depths of passion and knowledge that challenged everything he thought he understood about women, about marriage, about himself. Eleanor's hidden desires, once unleashed, proved to be a force of nature, as powerful and unpredictable as the Wyoming storms that shaped the landscape around them. She was tender and fierce, gentle and demanding, submissive and commanding, often within the space of a single heartbeat. The storm outside seemed to mirror the tempest that had been unleashed within the walls of their home. As Eleanor revealed layer after layer of her carefully concealed nature, Sam felt as though he was being swept away by forces beyond his control or understanding. This was not the gradual, gentle development of marital intimacy that he had expected. This was a revelation, a transformation that left him questioning everything he thought he knew about the woman he had married and about himself. When dawn finally broke over the snow-covered landscape, Sam lay awake beside his sleeping wife, his body exhausted, but his mind racing with the implications of what had transpired between them. Eleanor slept peacefully, Her auburn hair spread across the pillow, her face serene and innocent in the morning light. Looking at her, it was almost impossible to believe that this was the same woman who had taken such complete control of their passion just hours before. The contrast between her daytime persona and her nighttime reality was so stark that Sam wondered if he had dreamed the entire encounter. But the evidence of their passion was undeniable. In the scattered clothes, in the rumpled bedsheets, in the lingering scent of lavender and desire that filled the room. More than that, there was a change in the very air between them, a new awareness that could never be undone. Eleanor had revealed her secret, and in doing so, she had fundamentally altered the nature of their relationship. Sam realized that he had not married a timid Eastern lady who would need his protection and guidance. He had married a woman whose hidden depths of passion and strength might well prove to be more than he could handle. As Eleanor began to stir beside him, her eyes fluttering open to meet his gaze, Sam saw something new in her expression, a satisfaction, a sense of completion that had been absent during all the months of their careful, proper courtship. She smiled at him, a slow, knowing smile that held promises of future revelations, future nights when the proper facade would fall away to reveal the passionate woman beneath. In that moment, Sam understood that his life had been irrevocably changed, that the woman he had thought he was marrying had been merely the surface of a much deeper, more complex reality. The storm had passed, leaving the world outside, clean and white and new. But inside the ranch house, another kind of storm had just begun, one that would reshape the very foundations of Sam and Eleanor's marriage and challenge everything they thought they knew about love, desire, and the hidden depths of the human heart. As Eleanor rose from the bed and began to dress for the day, resuming her role as the proper ranch wife, Sam knew that he would never again be able to look at her without remembering the passionate woman who had claimed him so completely in the darkness of the storm. The days that followed Eleanor's revelation brought a new dynamic to their marriage that Sam struggled to understand and navigate. During the daylight hours, Eleanor maintained her facade of proper domesticity with the same skill she had always displayed. She cooked, cleaned, tended her garden, and interacted with the ranch hands and townspeople with the reserved politeness that had characterized her behavior since her arrival in Wyoming. To the outside world, nothing had changed. Mrs. Mackenzie remained the quiet, well-bred Eastern lady who had brought a touch of refinement to Sam's rough frontier existence. But Sam now knew the truth that lay beneath that carefully constructed exterior. And the knowledge colored every interaction between them. When Eleanor served his breakfast, her fingers would brush against his hand as she set down his plate, and the simple contact would send electricity racing through his veins. When she asked about his plans for the day, there was a new note in her voice, subtle, almost imperceptible to anyone who didn't know what to listen for, but unmistakably present to Sam's newly awakened awareness. She was playing a game, he realized, maintaining her public persona while privately reminding him of the passionate woman who emerged when darkness fell. The anticipation became almost unbearable. Sam found himself distracted during his daily work, his mind wandering to thoughts of Eleanor and the promises hidden in her storm-gray eyes. He would catch himself staring at her as she moved around the house, remembering the feel of her hands on his skin, the sound of her voice when she whispered commands in the darkness. The other ranch hands began to notice his distraction, teasing him good-naturedly about being a newlywed, but their jokes only served to heighten his awareness of the secret he and Eleanor shared. As winter deepened and the nights grew longer, Eleanor's nocturnal transformations became more frequent and more intense. She seemed to delight in the contrast between her daytime and nighttime personas, using her proper facade as a kind of foreplay that made their eventual coming together all the more explosive. She would spend the evening being the perfect frontier wife, mending his clothes, reading quietly by the fire, discussing the practical matters of ranch life with calm efficiency. But Sam learned to read the signs that indicated when the night would bring a different kind of encounter. The way she would let her hair down a little earlier than usual. The way she would linger over the evening chores. The particular smile she would give him when she thought no one else was looking. These nights of passion revealed new facets of Eleanor's hidden nature with each encounter. She possessed a knowledge of pleasure and desire that seemed far beyond what any proper Boston lady should have known, and Sam found himself both aroused and puzzled by the depth of her experience. When he finally worked up the courage to ask her about it, Eleanor's response was both enlightening and mysterious. She spoke of books she had read in secret, of conversations overheard in the drawing rooms of Boston society, of a curiosity about the physical aspects of marriage that had led her to seek knowledge that was considered inappropriate for unmarried women. But there was something more in her explanation, something that suggested her understanding went beyond mere academic curiosity. Eleanor had come to Wyoming, not just seeking a quiet life away from the city, but fleeing something or someone that had awakened desires she couldn't safely explore in the restrictive society of the East. Her marriage to Sam had provided her with the freedom to express the passionate nature she had been forced to hide, and she was determined to make the most of that freedom. The revelation that his timid wife had been harboring such secrets both thrilled and intimidated Sam. He had always prided himself on his ability to handle whatever challenges frontier life threw at him. But Eleanor's hidden depths presented a different kind of challenge entirely. She was teaching him things about pleasure, about desire, about the complex interplay between dominance and submission that he had never imagined. In her arms, he discovered that his own nature was more complex than he had realized, that he was capable of both commanding and yielding, of both taking and being taken. As spring approached and the harsh Wyoming winter began to loosen its grip on the land, Sam and Eleanor's relationship had evolved into something far more complex and satisfying than either of them had anticipated when they first exchanged vows in the small church in Cedar Ridge. Eleanor had found in Sam a partner who could appreciate and respond to her passionate nature without being threatened by it, while Sam had discovered that his proper Eastern wife possessed depths of sensuality and strength that challenged and excited him in ways he had never expected. The transformation of their marriage from a practical arrangement to a passionate partnership had not been without its challenges. There were moments when Sam struggled with the contrast between Eleanor's public and private personas, times when he wondered if he truly knew the woman he had married. Eleanor, for her part, had to learn to trust Sam with her secrets, to believe that he would not judge or reject her for the desires she had kept hidden for so long. But as the snow began to melt and the first signs of spring appeared on the Wyoming plains, both Sam and Eleanor had come to understand that their marriage had become something rare and precious, a union that satisfied not just their practical needs, but their deepest emotional and physical desires as well. Eleanor's hidden passion had transformed their relationship from a simple frontier marriage into something that burned with an intensity that matched the wild beauty of the land around them. The final test of their evolving relationship came with the arrival of spring and the return of the social obligations that came with warmer weather. The annual spring social in Cedar Ridge was the most important event of the year for the scattered ranching community, a chance for neighbors to reconnect after the isolation of winter and for newcomers to be formally welcomed into the community. For Eleanor, it would be her first major social event as Mrs. Mackenzie, and Sam watched with fascination as she prepared for the evening. The woman who emerged from their bedroom that night was a perfect synthesis of the two sides of Eleanor's nature. She wore a dress of deep green silk that was both elegant and appropriate, her hair arranged in a style that was sophisticated but not ostentatious. To the casual observer, she appeared to be exactly what she had always seemed, a refined Eastern lady who had adapted well to frontier life. But Sam could see the subtle signs that revealed the passionate woman beneath. The way the dress hugged her curves just a little more closely than strict propriety demanded. The confident set of her shoulders, the knowing look in her eyes when she caught his gaze. At the social, Eleanor charmed everyone she met with her combination of Eastern sophistication and genuine warmth. She danced with the local ranchers, chatted with their wives about recipes and household management, and impressed everyone with her knowledge of literature and current events. But throughout the evening, Sam was aware of the undercurrent of sensuality that ran beneath her proper behavior. When they danced together, her hand would linger on his shoulder just a moment longer than necessary. When she laughed at his jokes, there was a husky note in her voice that reminded him of the sounds she made in the darkness of their bedroom. The evening was a triumph for both of them. Eleanor had successfully established herself as a valued member of the community, while maintaining the secret that made their private life so intensely satisfying. Sam had watched with pride as his wife navigated the social complexities of frontier society, knowing that he was the only one who truly understood the depths of passion and strength that lay beneath her polished exterior. As they rode home under a canopy of stars, Eleanor finally allowed her carefully maintained facade to slip. She moved closer to Sam on the wagon seat, her hand finding his thigh, her voice dropping to the husky whisper that never failed to make his pulse race. The proper Mrs. Mackenzie, who had charmed the citizens of Cedar Ridge, was already fading away, replaced by the passionate woman who would claim him completely before the night was through. That night, as Eleanor once again revealed the full extent of her hidden desires, Sam finally understood the true nature of what they had built together. Their marriage was not just a union of two people seeking companionship and practical partnership. It was a perfect balance of public respectability and private passion that allowed both of them to be fully themselves in ways they had never imagined possible. Eleanor's timid facade gave her the freedom to explore her sensual nature without social consequences, while Sam's discovery of his wife's hidden depths had awakened aspects of his own character that he had never known existed. As dawn broke over the Wyoming plains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Sam held his sleeping wife in his arms and marveled at the journey that had brought them to this moment. The timid Eastern bride, who had stepped off the stagecoach less than a year ago, had revealed herself to be a woman of extraordinary passion and complexity. Someone whose hidden desires had transformed not just their marriage, but Sam himself. In learning to appreciate and respond to Eleanor's secret nature, he had discovered that love could be both tender and fierce, that desire could be both gentle and overwhelming, that the most satisfying relationships were those that honored both the public and private aspects of human nature. The sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the ranch that Sam had built with his own hands. The ranch that had become not just a home, but a sanctuary where two people could be completely themselves with each other. Eleanor stirred in his arms, her eyes opening to meet his gaze. And in that moment, Sam knew that whatever challenges the future might bring, they would face them together. The respected rancher and his proper wife by day, the passionate lovers who had found in each other the perfect complement to their deepest needs by night. Their story had become a testament to the transformative power of hidden desires revealed and accepted. A reminder that the most profound connections between two people often lay not in what they showed the world, but in what they shared in the sacred privacy of their most intimate moments. Eleanor's secret had not destroyed their marriage. It had made it stronger, deeper, and more satisfying than either of them had dared to hope when they first spoke their vows in the little church in Cedar Ridge. As the new day began and the demands of ranch life called them back to their public roles, Sam and Eleanor Mackenzie prepared to face the world as they always did, as a respectable frontier couple who had found happiness in the practical partnership of marriage. But they carried with them the knowledge of what awaited them when darkness fell and the proper facades could be set aside, when Eleanor's hidden desires could once again transform their quiet ranch house into a place where passion burned as bright and wild as the Wyoming stars.